Hello and welcome back to the Go-Stroid development series. Today we'll be getting our game assets downloaded and setting up our basic scene structure. So first thing we want to do, of course, is actually get our assets downloaded. Now there will be a link in the description for the assets that I'm using. As usual, I will be using the art assets from kenny.nl. I always recommend using their assets as they are easily accessible and more often than not have everything you'll need to get the base fundamentals of the game you want done without having to think about the art, which is honestly half of the work. It's so quick and simple to just get these done and just start prototyping and building, and then you can replace them later if you really want to. So as said, in a link in the description below is the assets that I'm going to be using. I have chosen the Space Shooter Redux because it has a bunch of little ships that we can use, some projectiles, some numbering, some sources, some asteroids, bunch of other parts to create custom ships, which we might actually look into a little bit. Some basic shields or explosions, a lot of stuff we can do with this. And here's a little image of what some of it actually looks like. Pretty cool if you ask me, including like a life counter and a number counter. Very useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit download. It'll give you the thank you for downloading message, and then up here you'll get your little Space Shooter Redux downloads done. So that's what this is here. These are all of the assets that we plan on using. Now I'm going to close out this page real quick. And on my desktop, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this the Go-Stroid Vault. This is just going to contain a lot of the random things that we want to put in our project. I'm going to open that. I'm going to create a new folder in here. I'm going to call it Assets. And I'm going to extract all of these files inside of the zipped file that we got from the Space Shooter Redux. I'm going to just pull them over to the Assets folder. And it's going to extract them for us. There we go. We now have all of our assets ready and done. We also have a few little backgrounds that we can use, which is little starry backgrounds, which are actually really nice. So with that in mind, let's very quickly go and now sort out the actual project, right? We now need to go and open Godot and sort out our project. So you see here, I'm going to be using Godot version 4.2.1. Anything earlier or anything later might have issues. Specifically anything earlier. There might be some things we do in this that any earlier version than 4.2.1 may actually run into some issues or have some bugs and things like that that may not be able to completely help you with. Anything later, to be honest with you, will probably be fine. So any version after this one should be fine. But yeah, just give you that warning. So what we're going to do is double click on it. It'll say, you know, if this is the first time that you've ever launched Godot, it'll be like, hey, you don't have any projects. That is A-okay. We can go and click new, and we can go and find where we want to do this. So the project path that I have decided to do is going to be my D drive. It's going to be under a game dev folder, and it will be in the YouTube projects folder. Now, after you have set up your project path by just hitting browse, selecting the path that you want to actually have or the place you want to store at, you'll come with this project name button here, or project name fill box. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to name this Go-Stroid. And then we are going to hit create new folder. That's going to create a new folder in the YouTube projects folder that I created for this specific project. Now, what do we want to do here for the rest of these? The renderer for mobile compatibility and forward plus. We're going to use forward plus. There's no reason not to in this instance. And version control metadata. Now, I haven't really shown off version control in any of these series before. We're going to keep this on Git for a reason. And that's because I will do a video that's kind of separate from this that is specifically for learning how to do version control. So I will show that off as well. But we're going to leave it on Git and hit create and edit. Now we just got to let that launch, and there we go. So if this is your first time launching this, you might not have, you might have some more buttons and a few other odd things kind of lying around that don't actually kind of fit what I'm showing you. Now, to kind of change this, you want to go up into the editor button up here. Go to Manage Editor Features, and you'll see here on the main features, I have the 3D editor and the asset library unchecked. That gives me my 2D current profile. I also have, if I scroll all the way down, you'll see, here we go, you'll see control nodes, you'll see these blue nodes, which are the 2D nodes, and then as I scroll down, you'll see this node 3D. Everything within node 3D, so 3D specific nodes, I have unticked. That way they don't just pop up and kind of get in my way. Otherwise, there's just a lot of other things. But with those unchecked, you can just hit OK, and you'll have the same layout I do. So how do we actually kind of get this set and sorted, right? How do we, what do we want to do for settings? Well, let's go to the project settings. Let's go down into display window. This is going to be the viewport width and height. Now, we can leave this as 1152 by 648 if we want to, and we can come back and modify it and change it when we want to. And that's probably what we will do for now. So that's pretty much the only settings here we need to have. The next ones that we need to sort out, oh, actually, getting ahead of myself here. One thing we want to do is the stretch mode, where it says mode disabled. We want to switch to viewport, and the aspect we can leave as keep for now. This should be fine for what we want. That'll basically make it so when you resize the window, it doesn't get any black bars, and it keeps things scaled correctly. So the next thing we want to do, of course, is go into our input map up here, and we're going to add a few actions immediately, just so we can get these done and get these ready, and we don't have to come back through the input map and add more. First, what I'm going to do is going to be for accelerate. Click add. The next one I'm going to do is going to be fire. Click add. And that's it. That's all we actually need for now. So on accelerate, that is happening because I currently have a Nintendo Pro Controller enabled. If you ever have an issue like that, it's because a Nintendo Pro Controller is enabled and it's seeing or using the gyroscope as a button. Very weird. So let's try that again. There we go. So for accelerate, I'm going to use the W key. I'll also do the up arrow. And for fire, I'm going to do the left mouse button. I'm going to do the E key for now, just in case I want to change it, or the space bar. There we go. So you have E, space, and left mouse button to fire your guns when we get to that point. So that's all of the actions that we need sorted. So next thing we want to do, well, we want to start adding our assets and things in, right? So let's go and do that. In the bottom left corner down here, you'll see this thing called a file system. This is where all of the files that we plan on using will be stored, all of our scenes, all of our scripts, all of our everything. So what we're going to do here in the res // folder is we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call this one scenes. And then once again, in the res folder, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call this the assets folder. Actually, we don't need to create the assets folder. We won't do that for now. Instead, we will create a new one called auto loads because we'll be needing those as well. And that will probably be enough for now. So let's actually go and get our assets imported into this. So how do we do that? Well, if we go to the folder that we have created before, the Go-Stroid Vault, this one, and we open Godot up, open that folder up as well, there we go. We can do two things. We can click and we can drag and drop into the file system. You can do that. Or the other thing you can do is right click on the res folder, open in File Manager, open up the two folders right next to each other. So you've got the Go-Stroid folder and the Go-Stroid Vault folder that we had. And then you can just click and drag this into it. It will move it across like so. Now close that out. We now have this assets folder inside the project folder. We can close that out. And then give it a second to re-import assets. Sometimes this may cause a crash in your game. If it does, just relaunch it and it should be good to go. If it doesn't, you are good to go. So we now have all of our backgrounds, all of our assets, pictures, kind of everything, our sprite sheets. We have all of the assets we need to actually create the game in the project. So something I haven't done in previous videos, as I'm going to do now, is we're going to add some color coding to our folders here. So to do this, we're going to right click on the assets folder. We are going to go down to set folder color. This is a very new thing to version 4.2. And we're going to make this green. So our assets will be green. Our auto loads will be yellow. And our scenes will be blue. There we go. So that just kind of color codes it a little bit. There isn't really much of a reason to do this other than, hey, I want to have color coded files. And I like color-coded files, so hey, we have color-coded files now. So with our assets done, our autoloads done, our scenes done, we now need to go and create our game space. So this is going to be really, really simple. We're going to go and click the 2D scene button. and it'll open up this new unsaved scene of type node 2D. We're going to rename that by either double clicking on the node like so, or clicking on it once and then clicking F2, or we can right click and hit rename. We're going to rename this to main. This is going to be where our, this is with the capital, this is going to be where all of our scenes are going to be ran and kind of just be doing things. So this is going to be main. Now, on top of this, we're going to want to add a few different nodes to it, right? To do that, we can either use Control A to open up the create a new node window. We could use the plus icon to add a child node or create a new node, same way of doing it. Or we can right click and then hit add child node. So basically, if you see that window pop up and you'll hear me say it, I will say the words Control A. So Control A to open this. Now the Mac shortcut is Command A is the Mac shortcut specifically. So if I say the words Control A to add to a new child node, on a Mac you can use Command A. So we're going to use that shortcut now, and we're going to add a new type of node to this. We are going to add what's known as a canvas layer. Now this is going to be for our UI. Now we don't have any UI, we don't actually have anything, but this is going to be a container for these things. So we're going to rename this canvas layer to UI_container. Now we're going to click on the main scene again. We're going to use Control A for Windows or Command A for Mac. And we're going to add a node 2D to this. So we've got now two things nested within our main. We're going to rename this to the level_container. We'll add one more. Actually, even better, we can do this quite quickly as well. We can use the duplication function. So to duplicate things, this is a shortcut that you can use. Left click on the thing you want to duplicate. And then on Windows, you can use Control D, and on Mac, you can use Command D. So in this instance, we're going to use Control D to duplicate. I'm going to rename this to we'll call this entity_container. And that is literally all of the setup we need to do for the main scene. Final thing we want to do, of course, is make sure this gets saved. So let's hit Control S, or I'm assuming Command S, if I remember correctly, Command S. To save, we're going to go into the scenes folder, create a new folder in here. We're going to call this the main folder. You'll note that I'm using an uncapitalized M here for the naming of the folders. I want all of the folders to have no capital letters. So for the name, it will be main, like so. And then I'm going to hit save, and we now have our main scene set up and loaded. Now, the final thing I want to do, just to make sure that we are completely ready to go, is the little arrow up here for running the project. I want to click this and it'll pop up with no main scene has ever been defined, select one. Now we don't actually have anything to run, that is fine. We just want to kind of make sure that our main scene is selected as our current scene. So we're going to use select current. So now every time we click that play button, it will run the main scene. Now if we want to run scenes individually, say we have another new scene up here, we can use the run current scene button. But that is pretty much the entire setup that we need to have done for setting up our play space, getting our assets in, and kind of being ready for the next video. And in the next video, we're going to be sorting out some player basic movement and some object screen wrap. So thank you for watching. I hope you are having a great day and a great game dev journey, and I will see you in the next video.